Hello and welcome to It's Your Business with Mario Toneguzzi on Megapix Media. Joining me today is Carl Davies, who's Equifax Canada's Head of Fraud and Identity. Thanks for joining us today, Carl.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, so I wonder, Carl, if you can throw out some numbers for us to tell us how bad of a problem fraud and identity theft is in Canada right now.
Yeah, thanks. Fraud and ID, they're always a problem. Certainly during the pandemic, we've seen an increase in the rates of fraud. If you look at the announcement we made today, we saw a 43% increase in the rate of fraud during that peak pandemic month. So while it's a challenge for businesses to manage typically, managing it during a pandemic when there are other priorities is very challenging.
Okay, so tell me why it's happening. Why do you see an increase now, particular because of the pandemic?
So during times that are challenging, economic uncertainty, various things happen. Firstly, you have less rational consumers, people who are, concerned about financial well-being. You typically see an increase in the type of fraud activity, either through first-party fraud, which is where, people may be acting on their own behalf, but potentially committing some type of fraud. You also see third-party fraud increase, which is a little bit more nefarious. And certainly when businesses are trying to put more things online, and sometimes doing that in a hurry, there become more opportunities and avenues for those fraudsters to be able to take advantage of those weaknesses.
Okay, super then. So what can consumers, people do to protect themselves, especially during these times?
Yeah, so just be mindful of where you're giving out any of your identity credentials. Keep them extremely safe. Where you're getting sort of emails or text messages, or even somebody trying to sell you some PPE equipment, which was a scam we saw quite heavily during the COVID pandemic. Just be mindful of those type of scenarios that you're getting yourself into. From a business perspective, the real way to look at it is to make sure that your acquisition channel is as robust as possible. Certainly businesses are looking to certainly recover some of that lost revenue from the summer by increasing their digital presence. And like I said, sometimes doing that in a hurry doesn't allow those processes to be hardened as they should be. And so that's really where Illuminate comes in. It will allow the businesses to be able to protect themselves by looking at some of the consortium data that we have through our decade-long tenure with organizations who are sharing that. And also by looking at the analytics or the behavior that we see, the behavioral patterns that might precipitate some of the types of fraud.
And sorry, Carl, that's a new platform you've launched?
Yes, so today we made the announcement that Illuminate, our new fraud prevention platform, is officially launched in Canada. As I mentioned, it builds on well over a decade of experience with many contributors to the consortium-based model. But this time we're adding in a layer of advanced analytics. So we have some very advanced machine learning models that will combine that proprietary consortium data along with some algorithms to try and look at behavioral models of fraud.
Okay, and just one last thing, Carl, as you look at things these days, we're into second waves. Many people believe this is something that ain't going to go away anytime soon. Do you think the incidence of fraud and identity theft will just continue to increase?
I certainly think so. My personal opinion here is that I'm not sure that we've seen the peak of the pandemic, sort of pandemic fraud yet. We certainly saw quite a significant increase in the rate of fraud, but looking forward, I would say that, again, businesses are looking to recover lost revenue. A significantly increased amount of consumer spending is going to happen in those online channels. Typically, that is great news for a fraudster. That's really the avenue they're going to look to exploit. And so, alongside our normal seasonal expectations of an increase in fraud during the holiday season, coupled with those items I just mentioned, I think actually we're likely to see an increase in fraud rates as we move through the holiday season.
Okay, thanks very much for joining us today, Carl.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, that was Carl Davies with Equifax Canada. This has been It's Your Business with Mario Toneguzzi on Megapix Media. Thanks for joining us today.